A few questions that might be interesting. One was about what you see as perhaps the differences between different types of emotions and feelings and how they can be useful for us in pointing our direction in a spiritual way.
So is the question really about the different kinds of emotions and feelings, or the difference between feeling and emotion?
But either on both.
Either or both. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's been an ongoing discussion, hasn't it? An ongoing controversy, perhaps, that feeling and emotion should be distinguished. I have to say that popularly it hasn't caught on. Therefore, because in terms of language alone and communicating, in my books I will tend to fudge the issue on purpose, because people are liable to exchange emotion or feeling. They're synonyms. I think in order to communicate and not be overly pedantic, I do the same. However, we know that emotions relate to a psychophysical experience, usually reactive in some kind of way, almost certainly patterned in some kind of a script, shall we say, from childhood, whereby I feel something in relationship, I feel an emotion in relationship to certain stimuli or certain behaviour or certain kinds of behaviours or reactions to me. Relationship, in other words, one sort or another. Feeling, on the other hand, really stands for some kind of evaluation, some kind of assessment that results in the evaluating behaviour or events in the world, and therefore it's very different, isn't it, to emotions as such. It may elicit emotions in itself, but the feeling is not the emotion. But you know, in the popular mind, they're pretty much the same. And so, you know, as I've often remarked, I'm a would-be scholar. If I were to remain solidly in that scholarly part of me, I'd probably be more strict about it. But we write, I think, in the psychospiritual field in a way that helps people to understand. So we talk to some degree the language as it's used, and it may be in time, after all, that these two words really become synonyms. So that's the first thing I'd say. Feeling, emotion are different. We know how they're different. The next part of the question really is about the different emotions, stroke feelings that we have. I think I'd like to answer like this more than anything. Essentially, there's two layers to emotions. There's emotions from the personality, or you may say the small self, or you may say the conditioned character, which have a certain quality, a certain depth to them, which is characterized really by action, reaction. They are not free. Those feelings are not freely felt, you might say. We could even call them programmed. And for most of us, most of the time, most of our lives, sometimes we may be caught out by a particularly profound incident or something out of left field we weren't expecting that affects us to a greater depth than the usual. Most of the time, however, what we're feeling are programmed feelings of reactivity. When you enter, and now my jargon, second stage awakening, which is the awakening of the heart, of authenticity, which is a very different experience of life and a very different relation to life, emotions are of an entirely different quality and certainly profundity. They now are characterized by spontaneity. They are no longer programmed. They're no longer, in a sense, synonymous with thought, because they're not programmed. And in a sense, they're not personal or not possessions. They're not, if you will, supporting the character structure that presents itself as personality. You see. So this is the primary distinction I think to make, is that if we want to truly feel, then we have to feel outside of the relation of action-reaction. We have to feel outside of programmed emotionality that supports our conditioning, and we have to be willing to jump into that unknown space, if you will, of spontaneity, of not thinking what we feel, of not feeling in order to support our limitations or the creation of the small self. And in that lies our authenticity, and actually our relationship to love, which is not an emotion. So that's maybe one of the primary things to remember about what I'm saying could be summarized as in the first level of emotion. Love is felt as an emotion, we might say, experienced, thought of as an emotion, is an emotion even. But in the second, more profound, spontaneous, authentic awakening, which is a psychological reality, a possibility for everybody, but you have to step outside of your conditioning, then emotion is no longer supporting the creation of the childhood ego self. Have I answered?
Yeah, that sounds very good.